Hey guys, in this video I'll show you how to build and play an Arcanist tank if you're a beginner. I'll be covering mostly stuff like skills and gear that you should use. If you want to learn more about the very basics of tanking, I have a separate video and a website guide about it. Speaking of which, this beginner Arcanist guide is also on my website, so if you prefer written guides, you can read it there instead. The Arcanist plays quite differently from other tank classes in ESO, with its main strength lying in its damage shields. The Impervious Runeward's damage shield value is incredibly high, and can be further buffed with the Intricate Runeform's passive. Arcanists also get tons of raw stats from their passives and abilities. Runic Sunder and Ages of the Unseen together provide 4180 additional armor, Wellspring of the Abyss will boost your recoveries for each Soldier of the Apocrypha ability slotted, which will then also get boosted by Erudition on top of that. In terms of group support, the Arcanist brings 2200 armor penetration from Runic Sunder, providing roughly a 4% damage increase. The Arcanist also has a much easier access to the Mana Brittle debuff, thanks to Rune of the Colorless pool, which increases critical damage by 10%, lasting 20 seconds, compared to the usual 4 seconds that come from proccing the Chilled effect with an Ice Staff. The Arcanist also brings the almost unique Minor Evasion buff, reducing damage taken from area of effect attacks by 10%. This is the skill setup you're going to use. The first skill is Shield Throw, with the Taunt, Sage's Remedy and Maim script combination on it. If you do not have access to scribing, you should replace Shield Throw with Destructive Clench, and then swap the positions around with Runic Sunder, because you can't use Destructive Clench on your front bar. Next is Soul Burst, with the Damage Shield, Crusader's Defiance and Courage combination on it. If you do not have access to scribing, you should use Zena's Empowering Disc instead. Next is Impervious Runeward, a massive damage shield that will also heal you if you spend cracks on it. Next we have Ulfsild's Contingency, and you should use the Damage Shield, Gladiator's Tenacity and Intellect and Endurance combination on it. Use Rune of the Colorless pool, Defensive Stance, Revealing Flare, or Heroic Slash instead of Ulfsild's Contingency, if you do not have access to scribing. Next we have Runeguard of Still Waters, which will provide you minor protection, minor resolve, and it will heal you for 30% of your max HP, if you're damaged while below 50% HP. Next we have Glyphic of the Tides ultimate, though it isn't meant to be activated, at least most of the times. It's on your front bar to proc the Intricate Runeform's passive, which will increase effectiveness and reduce the cost of your damage shields by 10%. This will affect Soul Burst, Imperial's Runeward, and Ulfsild's Contingency. Keep in mind that if you do not have access to scribing, and you went with Zena's Empowering Disc in one of your previous skill slots, Zena's is already proccing Intricate Runeforms, so you can instead use Gibbering Shelter as your front bar ultimate. Next we have Crooksweaver Armor, your source of major resolve, which will also generate some cracks, and occasionally apply Minor Breach, though it isn't a very reliable source of it. Next skill is Wield Soul, and you should use the Pool, Druid's Resurgence and Cowardice combination on it. If you do not have access to scribing, you should use Silver Leash instead. Elemental Susceptibility provides lots of very important debuffs. Elemental Blockade will constantly proc your Crusher enchant. Then we have Runic Sunder, a 22 meter range taunt, which gives you a lot of armor, and also steals that armor from the enemy. The Aggressive Horn ultimate will grant you and your teammates a 10% maximum stamina and magicka buff for 30 seconds, which is roughly a 2.5% damage increase. It will also grant everyone a shorter 10-second major force buff, which increases critical damage by 20%, and is roughly an 8% damage increase. And last few things, as much as I'm trying to make it a single setup, there will be fights where you will just have to slot some situational stuff. You will have to slot Crushing Shock for fights that require ranged interrupts, such as Turvokun in Fangler Dungeon, or Ansul in Sanity's Edge Trial. And you'll have to slot Immovable for fights that require lots of block mitigation, such as Archdruid Devrik in Erdenroot Enclave Dungeon, or Zalvaka in Roggrove Trial. This is the crafted gear setup you can start with. You do not need to start with a crafted setup, and you can move on straight to the setup from dungeons, because normal difficulty dungeons are easy enough to clear while wearing random gear pieces you pick up from questing. This crafted setup is for people who are anxious about tanking and need a stepping stone setup, even though it isn't really needed. Sets like Fortified Brass or Central Defender, though this one is from Overland, not crafted, can be better than Druid's Braid, but Druid's Braid has the benefit of not becoming mostly useless when you stop wearing 5 pieces of it. And it's important because I can't know what content you're going to farm first. Are you going to get a monster set first and replace head and shoulder slots? Or are you replacing weapons and jewelry first? With Druid's Braid, it doesn't matter, because it's slowly losing effectiveness piece by piece. The Druid's Braid shield will also stay relevant for you, even past your beginner phase. Now this is a starting setup you can get from dungeons. Turning Tide drops from normal or veteran Shipwright's Regret. Crimson Oath's Rive drops from normal or veteran the Dreadcellar. Tremor Scale drops from veteran Volenfell. Trainee drops from starter zones. Druid's Braid is crafted. Tri-stat enchants are better than single stat ones, but they're extremely expensive. And the reason I listed them here, but not in the crafted setup, is because Tremor Scale and Turning Tide will stay relevant past your beginner phase. So if you can afford tri-stat enchants, you should go for it. This is the setup for dungeons, and here's a few more options. Use Vestments of All Rim instead of War Machine if you're playing without a healer in a 1 tank, 3 damage dealers group comp. Turning Tide is a decent alternative for Loosened Echoes. Powerful Assault is a decent alternative for War Machine, but you'll need an assault ability to proc it, so you'll have to fit Resolving Vigor into your skill setup. Crimson Oath's Rive is a decent alternative for War Machine, but it will be useless for damage dealers, who already brought enough armor penetration on their own. If you're a Nord, you should replace 2 reinforced traits with Divines or Sturdy, as these would put you over the armor cap with Ragged. This is the setup for Pack Trials as a main tank. This setup is a recommendation for random pack groups. In an organized trial, always listen to what the raid lead wants you to wear, rather than what I'm showing here. Crimson Oath's Rive has 2 bonus armor lines, which together will grant you 2974 additional armor. This will put you way over the armor cap, if you're a Nord, because of Ragged. You could change all of your reinforced traits to Divines or Sturdy to offset this, but it's not really worth it, because Crimson Oath's Rive is a set purely for random groups, and it will be completely invalidated by Alkosh in any organized group, so you will definitely stop using it at some point. And this is the setup for Pack Trials as an off-tank. Same as last time, this is just a recommendation, so in an organized trial, always listen to what the raid lead wants you to wear, rather than what I'm showing here. You'll need an Assault ability to proc Powerful Assault, so you'll have to fit Resolving Vigor into your skill setup. You could replace Shield Throw if a fight doesn't require a Wrench Taunt and the boss doesn't hit hard. You could also replace Wield Saw if you don't need to chain any adds. But if you're clueless about what to replace, then replacing Oath's Contingency is the safest option. Though Powerful Assault is on your back bar, so you have to move some skill to front bar in place of Oath's Contingency, and then put Resolving Vigor on back bar. Saxon's Champion allows you to provide Major Force with any ultimate, so you can change your backbar ultimate from Aggressive Horn to Replenishing Barrier or Gibbering Shelter, and you'll only lose out on the Horn resource buff, while providing a defensive ultimate for you and your group. Moving on to champion points. On your blue tree, you should use Ironclad, Duelist Rebuff, Enduring Resolve, and Bulwark. On your red tree, you should use Boundless Vitality, Shieldmaster, Bastion, and Bracing Anchor. If you're a Nord with fully golded out gear and proper traits, you will be over the armor cap of these champion points. So you can replace Bulwark with, for example, Focus Mending or Unassailable. Moving on to race. Nord is the best race for tanking, due to the increased armor from Ragged and ulti generation from Stalwart. The imbalance between different races can be massive for other classes, but Arcanists get tons of armor from Ages of the Unseen and Runic Sunder, so the difference is very small. Now moving on to Mundus. The best Mundus is the Achnak, which increases your magical recovery by 310, and causes your armor pieces with the Divine trait to increase it by another 28. Moving on to attributes. Majority of the times, you should put all your points into health. However, you need your max stamina to be higher than your max magicka, because the combustion synergy restores your dominant resource, and you want it to be stamina. Because of that, you might have to put some attribute points into stamina, if you have passives, such as for example the Gift of Magnus Racial, or items with bonuses, such as for example 1-piece bonus of Encratis' Behemoth, that increase your max magicka. Put just enough points to make your max stamina higher than your max magicka, and then put the rest into health. Now moving on to food. The best food is Orzorga's Smoked Bear Haunch. However, it's extremely expensive, so you should use Jewels of Misrule instead. It provides only slightly lower stats than Orzorga, while being significantly cheaper. As for other useful foods, we have Orzorga's Red Frofgar, which provides more max health and magical recovery, at the cost of providing no stamina recovery at all. Stamina recovery doesn't work while blocking, so it can be a decent option if you're perma-blocking. Bewitched Sugar Skulls provides maximum resources instead of recoveries. It can be decent for fights where you need to block for a very long time during a very specific period, but the pressure is non-existent outside of that specific period, so you can recuperate stamina by heavy attacking freely, like for example Roxa the Warped boss in Balsonar dungeon. The increased maximum resources will also increase the scaling of some of your healing abilities, such as Resolving Vigor. And the last one is Candid Jester's Coin. provides only max stamina and magic recovery. It can be decent when you want to reduce your max health during a specific phase of a fight. For example, in Cloud Rest, you can eat it right as the execute phase starts, because maximum health becomes a detriment due to the baneful mark mechanic. Moving on to potions. Most of the time, you should use the Tri-Stat potions, which restore health, stamina, magicka, and increase all the recoveries. They will greatly improve your sustain. You can craft them by combining Columbine, Baglos, and Mountain's Flower. There are better potions, but they're extremely expensive, so they're only worth using when you're tryharding for the most difficult achievements, such as Trial Trifectas. Heroism potions can provide 100% uptime on minor heroism buff, which generates ultimate, but they're extremely expensive because they're crafted by combining Dragon Rheum, Dragon's Blood, and Columbine. And that's it for this video. If you have any more questions, you can comment down below, or join our Discord server Wildheart. As always, feedback will be appreciated. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel and check out my Twitch. Thanks for watching and see you next time.